In some of my recent commentary videos, I briefly talked about Mario Kart as a franchise, my current opinions on it, and the future of the series. I've had a lot of thoughts I've wanted to share, so I want to take this video to flesh out some of my thoughts and ideas. I love the Mario Kart franchise. I've basically played Mario Kart my whole life, and I've been making content on the franchise for about 4 years now, so I feel as I have a good perspective to give some thoughts. As you guys know, I'm not the biggest fan of Mario Kart 8. I think Lakitu is way too restrictive. I think items based on distance is a disaster, the coin item is atrocious, and the roster is too messy and filled with terrible characters. I could go on and on. If you really just want to hear my rant, I have a 40-minute video I made a few years ago just ranting about how much I hated Mario Kart 8. But throughout 2022 and 2023, I've grown a bit to the game, and I think it's mostly due to the Booster Course Pass DLC, which doubled the amount of tracks in the game. I've always had the opinion that more tracks doesn't always equate to the game being better, and I think most people agree with that, or else CTGP would be the most popular thing ever. There's obviously other more important things that go into determining what makes a Mario Kart game good, but I'm not here just to rant against Mario Kart 8, but to give some things I like and dislike about the game to help shape Mario Kart 9 into the best possible product, and the direction I personally believe Nintendo is going to go. Okay, first let's talk about the Booster Course Pass. Now that it's finally fully out, I wanted to give my full opinion on it and why I think Nintendo did this. As I already stated, the Booster Course Pass added 48 tracks on top of the already existing 48 tracks in the base deluxe port. Most of these tracks were either retro or tour tracks, which I think is fine, especially given the $20 price point. I feel like Nintendo could have easily charged $5 per cup and made more than double the money they made, and it still would have been fair in my opinion. If you love Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, there's really no reason you wouldn't buy this DLC. The main issue I had with this was that there was just too many tour tracks. Personally, I just feel like a lot of the tour tracks aren't as exciting as the regular or retro tracks. They just feel flat and lifeless for the most part. It feels as they're sort of meant to simulate the real world, but the real world is boring. I don't want to feel like I'm taking a casual stroll through London. I want funky techno bobs with jamming piranha plans with twists and turns through an early 2000s nightclub. And I can't just avoid the tour tracks. Even as someone who has not purchased the DLC, I'm still playing a tour track basically every third race. And this next thing isn't a DLC specific thing, as there are many remakes I'm displeased with, but the DLC tracks like Sky Garden and Shroom Ridge were tracks I felt were made worse with the remakes. But the biggest gripe I think I have with the game is the online, and the fact that we can only pick between 3 tracks when voting. Remember, when this system was designed, there were only 32 tracks in the game, and now we have triple that, so why couldn't they bump that number up even a little bit? And if we're going to be restricted to 3, then why do we still have the roulette system to pick the winner? If it was up to me, we'd have a system where we can just pick any track we want, like the older games. There was no reason to change that. If people picking the same track multiple times in a row was the problem, why couldn't they simply make it so if a track was picked, you can't pick that track for, say, 5 races? And the current system still allows you to play a track twice within 3 races, so it doesn't really fix the supposed problem much. You might argue, well, maybe it was just to speed things up. If people have 96 tracks to pick from, they'll feel overwhelmed and take longer to pick. But that argument doesn't work either. I can't remember a time where I played Mario Kart 8 and someone wasn't never picking their track until the last second. And the final argument could be, well, if they let you pick whatever track you want, people just won't play some tracks, which I would refute with that's a good thing, because if a track is bad, don't force me to play it. If I want to just keep rotating between the Wii tracks and Waluigi Pinball, then why can't I just play the way I want to play? If other people want other tracks, let them pick. If no one picks them, I think that says something about the track, not that we're too stupid to know what we want. Again, I'm really just making up potential arguments because I haven't really seen a good reason as to why the new system is better than the old system. Most people who say they like it don't really give a reason, so I just thought I'd explain my reasoning in depth. If the whole thing really is a problem though, then how about this for a new system? Instead of pausing between every race to pick a new track, we as a room pick 4 tracks to play. We can pick any track we want and the room randomly picks 4 of them. Then we play them back to back. We cannot play the same track in a set, and we don't go back to the lobby until the 4 races are over, so after the first race we immediately go to race number 2. Then VR is distributed based on your overall performance at the end, sort of like a Grand Prix. It allows the player to pick whatever tracks they want while not allowing frequent repeats, and it saves a ton of time. Again, I'd rather just have the old system, but I'll take anything over the Mario Kart 8 system, as long as we can pick what we want. So those are some of my main issues, but there's a lot I loved about the Booster Course Pack. First of all, the total number of Wii tracks in Mario Kart 8 went from 3 to 11. I'm so thankful Nintendo is finally giving the Wii some fair representation. I have some small gripes with some of the remakes, but overall, I'm happy they're here. And I think it's wonderful how Nintendo allows someone like me, who hasn't bought the DLC, to still play these tracks. It's much better than the Mario Kart 8 Wii U system, where they literally segregated those who bought the DLC and those who didn't buy it into different rooms. Most of the tracks in the Booster Course Pass were just great and a net good on Mario Kart 8 as a whole. They even brought back some great characters. In the original Mario Kart DLC, every single character was either a clone or not a Mario character. They brought back some good characters in the deluxe port, but the Booster Course Pass finally re-added Diddy Kong, Funky Kong, and Petey Piranha. And then we also finally got Kamek and Pauline as new characters. And as much as I don't like Birdo or Wiggler, they're still original characters, which is nice. Peachette is really the bad apple of the bunch. Like, did we really need another Peach clone? I really hope for the next Mario Kart, all variations of existing characters are condensed into one slot as costumes. I think people would be a lot more appreciative of these characters if they weren't taking up full slots. I'm really not sure why the Mario Kart franchise is the only Mario-related franchise to have these awful clone-filled rosters. They really need to take a note from Mario Party. Super Mario Party had an amazing roster with no clones, just original fun characters, and even Mario Party Superstars had a great roster that I would take over the Mario Kart 8 roster any day. And look, I'm fine with costumes. If they want to add these variations as costumes, I'm perfectly fine with that. They just need to be condensed, and not every roster needs a million characters. Okay, let's move on to the core mechanics. Some of the core mechanics in Mario Kart need to be changed for sure. For one thing, I think shock timers need to be brought back. In Mario Kart 8, not only can you get shocked while holding a shock, but shocks can happen back to back. I think it makes the game too random and negates strategy. I think boos need a bit of a rework as well. In Mario Kart DS, if a boo came after you, you would actually have a split second to react and use your item before the boo could steal it. I would love a split second of opportunity to give some counterplay to this obnoxious item. I also think mushrooms should appear in first instead of super horns. In fact, I think the super horn should just be tossed away. Not only would this make the mushroom not protect you against red shells, making it easier for second place to attack, but unlike the super horn, it takes skill to avoid the blue shell. It gives counterplay to the blue shell, but only if you've got the timing down. I think Nintendo should also add some sort of punishing item in first place. For example, the Thundercloud. I know it's crazy to want to bring back the Thundercloud, but hear me out. It would only appear in first place very rarely. It would add a risk to constantly chaining items in first. If first place isn't constantly laying traps or getting mushrooms to avoid blue shells, it's easier for second to catch up, which is what you'd want. I would not want the Thundercloud to appear in every race. Again, it should be very rare. You just want to keep the idea in the back of a frontrunner's minds to make them think twice about chaining items. I also think either the old item system needs to return, where if you hold an item you can get another item, or double item boxes need to become much more rare. I don't think double item boxes should always be available in certain spots. I think they should generate randomly, but be rare, like 3 to 4 per race. With 12 people in the room all getting double item boxes, the races are just way too item based now. Thankfully, Nintendo did make one good change where now if you sit in the back and purposely bag for items, you won't get good items anymore. Items should not be a spam fest where you can get from last to first within a couple button presses. Another huge new feature I think was amazing was the custom items feature, especially because it was free. Being able to customize races like this was something I have been wanting forever. I would love to see this taken even further, giving more item customization, like maybe setting the item odds for every placement or turn off item-based distance entirely. So I've given a few changes I would like to see in Mario Kart, but where is the series really going? Are we getting Mario Kart 9? Is Mario Kart Tour Mario Kart 9? Or are we getting another port of Mario Kart 8? Well, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo took the GTA 5 route and ported Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and added even more content. But even if they do this, I'm sure we'll get a new Mario Kart on the next console on top of that. Think about it how like New Super Mario Bros. U was released, and then a few years later we got Super Mario Bros. Wonder. This is originally actually what people were predicting was going to happen on the Switch with Mario Kart, but we're 7 years into the Switch's lifespan and we have still not even gotten a hint of a new Mario Kart coming to the Switch. I know this sounds like a bit of a stretch, but what if instead of porting Mario Kart 8 again, Nintendo ported the 96 tracks to a new Mario Kart, then added the remaining 55 retro tracks, officially creating the ultimate Mario Kart where you could play any track in the entire franchise. This sounds absolutely crazy, I know, but I feel like if Smash Bros. Can do it, Mario Kart can too. And think about how much money they've made from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. A game they developed over a decade ago is still drawing in millions of dollars, especially given the Booster Course pack. This franchise is a big moneymaker for Nintendo. Mario Kart 8 is the best-selling game on not one, but 2 consoles, totaling 65 million sales. It's been nearly a decade since the original's game release, so I'm expecting something big for the next entry. Not Mario Kart Ultimate necessarily, but something exciting. Because if they don't, then why would players quit Mario Kart 8? I do think this Booster Course Pass was a test for something though. Remember during Smash 4 when there was a fighter ballot where people could request fighters? Well, Sakurai admitted he was using that to determine some of the fighters for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I think was the main reason for it all along. Because we really didn't get any of the highly requested new fighters in the Smash 4 DLC. Personally, I think it had something to do with the idea that maybe Nintendo wanted to see if people would buy DLC even if they didn't have to buy it to play it online. Or maybe they were already developing and planning to release this content into the next Mario Kart game and wanted to make a few extra bucks now before they release that game, knowing people won't buy this DLC after it's announced. People have told me that Nintendo's basically been ripping the DLC from Mario Kart Tour, so that could ruin this argument, but I still think there's a big announcement coming that's going to make buying this DLC regrettable, just like how I'm still kicking myself over buying the Mario Kart 8 DLC when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was right around the corner. Regardless of what Nintendo ultimately decides to do, I'm confident that a lot of the tracks you're playing now are going to be the same tracks you're playing on your next Nintendo console. The one thing I'm really hoping for in the next Mario Kart though is a mission mode. This has been one of the most highly requested things to return for good reason. I honestly don't even care if we have to pay extra for it. A new take on the mission mode would be so interesting and a really fun way to pass the time. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on what you think the future of Mario Kart will be and if you agree with my ideas. Thank you for listening and have a good one.